Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about what I feel are, I guess we could say, the most negative things or qualities about the zodiac signs. I'm sorry, I don't want to sound derogatory or anything, but I did, the last week, I did the one with the best qualities or traits of the signs in my opinion. Now I got to do the worst to make sure it has its counterpart, I guess. Anyway, the first sign I'll talk about, I'm going to go in chronological order of the zodiac signs. Aries. Aries, I think, despite their generosity, very similar to Leo, and Aries has a number of good traits. I think the thing about them, one of the things I really may dislike is the fact that they seem like everything with them, it's kind of I guess we could say, the me first. There's a somewhat egocentric side to Aries that it's like, I know a lot of people might exhibit this quality because that's just life, and I think that's society in a way in general, but it seems like it's emphasized or accentuated more with Aries than on the average. And it's that thing about having their needs take precedence over whatever, and I think that's the thing with them. And there can be a very outspoken way where sometimes being straightforward is good, but sometimes the straightforwardness can be a little cutting and hurtful to perhaps a sensitive sign such as Cancer or Pisces. So those are things with them I look at in a negative light. Now, the next sign, Taurus. Well, Taurus is very persistent, and they got some good qualities. They are persevering. But the thing with Taurus is sometimes their persistence can be demonstrated perhaps in a negative manner. And I think one of the things I look at them, what's negative, is the fact that sometimes they will cling to relationships and people that really they need to detach themselves from. I have Taurus rising. I've been guilty of this to my detriment a number of occasions. And there's a thing about being loyal and steadfast to others, but they could take this in a way where it could actually really affect them in a negative manner. If somebody doesn't care about you anymore, or showing that they're very apathetic regarding you, you detach yourself from them at some point, and that's really the key, I think, with Taurus. And sometimes about being so resolute in their viewpoints that on occasion they won't necessarily listen to the others, and it's just about maybe them being right. Now the next sign, Gemini. Gemini is obviously very versatile and multifaceted. Most of us out there know that. The thing about Gemini, though, is it's just their general, I think their lack of persistence is what I think is one of their real negatives. And I understand they're restless, they get bored very easily, and when we look at this sign, it can be flighty and fickle. The mercurial nature, it's just that they're very changeable, and I think their mind just races so fast. It might learn something superficially real fast, and then go on to the next subject because of boredom. And I think when I look at Gemini, it's just about them lacking that tenacity and the ability to stick with one subject and try to master it completely. So, and just that's really the thing when I look at them, is really what I see as a strong negative. And anyway, the next sign. Now, Cancer. Got to talk about myself at some point, right? My sun sign is Cancer. Now, with Cancer, I think it's just the overall, the general can be overly emotional. The sensitivity is very strong and prominent in Cancer, which is, it's good in some ways, being sensitive to others' feelings, but sometimes they could be oversensitive and take things very, very strongly, more personally than perhaps any other sign, maybe with the exception perhaps Pisces is up there as well. But Cancer personalities, they will take a lot of things to heart when it doesn't really necessarily need to be. Somebody might just have a certain temperament or personality, and what they hear might be the result of just that person's general demeanor, or maybe somebody was in a bad mood, and it's not always a personal thing that maybe is directed at Cancer, and I think sometimes Cancers will misconstrue that and as to something that might be negatively directed at them, and it may be in a malicious way when it really wasn't. So anyway, that's for Cancer. Now, the next sign to talk about is Leo, and I think Leo has their unbridled loyalty. They're very loyal and steadfast. They're magnanimous. We know that. Most of us know that out there. But when I look at Leo, I think the thing, when I look at the real negative with them, it's their excessive pride. It's their ego. It's the fact that at certain times, where at times they might respect others for coming up with an answer that might be correct in as opposed to theirs. Sometimes I think if a Leo is showing up, at times their pride can severely get in the way, and that's really the thing with Leo, where I think is one of the negatives I really see with them. And Leos can be very domineering at the same time. That's another thing I see with Leos that I see in a very negative light, that sometimes they may need to ease up on relationships. They can be a little bit, say, controlling, a little bit sometimes bossy, because they have this, their supervisory role in their nature, so to speak. I think it's just they have this thing for authority and command, and sometimes they can get a little bit carried away with this, I think. Now, the next sign to talk about is Virgo. Now, Virgo, we know they're very analytical, punctilious with details. They have good pragmatism and practicality. The thing is, there's sometimes I think Virgos, when I look at them, they can be overly, I don't know if sometimes it's the critical side, that judgmental side, where something's off by half a degree. The alignment on a car is off by half a degree, and they'll be the ones to point it out. And sometimes, now, if somebody wants to give someone constructive criticism, I'm all for that. But I think with Virgo, sometimes it comes out in a way where it seems like it's judgmental or critical, and it may not always mean that way. It may not always be malicious or anything, but sometimes it may come across as this. And what people have to remember, Virgo's sun, moon, or ascendant, is that there is no infallible person, and sometimes to be careful maybe how you say something if you're going to correct somebody, and say it in a way where maybe it doesn't come across as a strong criticism. Now, the next sign I'll talk about is Libra. Now, Libra is the sign of balance. They're about equality, being equitable and fair. Now, Libra, the thing with them, it's just they're sometimes too obsessed with not taking a side. Reconciliation is fine, and trying to negotiate something between mutual friends to end a dispute. But sometimes, in some cases, you may have to take a side, and I think it's just their general ambivalence as far as this goes. This is something where I look at with Libra, is the thing with them is a strong negative. And you could take sides without coming across as being, I guess we could say, not being mean or hurting the other person's side that you're not taking. It can be done with tact and diplomacy. But sometimes sides do need to be taken, and the person that's strongly, blatantly wrong in an argument or dispute sometimes needs to be told so that he or she is wrong. Now, the next sign, Scorpio. Now, Scorpio, obviously a very strong, powerful, dominant sign, especially when it's Scorpio rising, I believe. We look at Scorpio, similar to Leo with the domineering thing. Sometimes they could come on as too strong to somebody, I think. And we look at, I think Scorpio, it's something with they have sometimes a very caustic tongue. Obviously, they are known for their sarcasm. And sometimes the statements that they make, obviously they can be very cutting or hurtful. It's not in the same manner as maybe in areas where it's just more of a direct, outspoken statement. Now, Scorpios have a way to really get somebody down if they really want to. I think the thing with the vengeance, with the vindictiveness, I think the tendency to just stay angry at someone, to perhaps harbor a grudge. I think those are the weaknesses that I see strongly associated with the sign of Scorpio. Now the next sign to talk about is Sagittarius, and as most of us know, Sagittarius is very buoyant, ebullient, very expansive, and very upbeat sign. But Sagittarius, I think I'll look at them, and the thing about them is I know they want to always see this bright side of everything, but sometimes you have to just look at things maybe a little bit, I want to say realistically, look at the side and see something for what it is more. And Sagittarius really see the positive in things. And I don't think, it's not so much that Sagittarius is not aware of negative things. They just don't want to accentuate it or emphasize it ever, and they like to overlook it. But the thing is, and also Sagittarius, similar to Aries, can be very blunt and sometimes lack tact and diplomacy, and I think that's another thing. Sagittarians are they're so about telling the truth, and even though their statements can be blunt, they can be very truthful at the same time. But sometimes they may need to take it down a notch, I think, with the bluntness and outspoken way of their, I guess you could say, of their nature. And anyway, the next sign to talk about is Capricorn. And Capricorn is known for being very consistent and being kind of like that punctual, reliable type personality, very astute in business matters. But look at Capricorn, I think it's just the general, this is no shocker, no need to be flabbergasted here, people. I think I look at this sign and it's about that they could be very super serious, sometimes too serious, sometimes too businesslike at times, where maybe they can be a little bit more capricious or whimsical and be a little bit more animated and lively about certain things. I think Capricorn kind of looks at a lot of things and says, well, okay, this has got to get done, this has got to get done, and everything's kind of, a lot of times in a straight-faced manner. I'm not stereotyping and saying they're all like this, but and also they're kind of, it's the most, I think, of all the signs, the more melancholy, the more sad of all the signs. Saturn is connected with this, and it rules over Capricorn. So that's another thing, and sometimes I think they just need to lighten up a little bit and express a more happier and upbeat side to things. The next sign I want to talk about is Aquarius. Now, as most of us know, Aquarius is like the nonconformist, very eccentric, likes to do their own thing. It's the maverick of the Zodiac. And I think sometimes when we look at Aquarius, sometimes maybe they just, it couldn't be too much emphasis on maybe just being different for the sake of being different. I mean, it's like if somebody takes a Ouija board and ties it around their back and walks around. I mean, I understand, and I know that's not a great example, but I'm just saying, as opposed to maybe just putting it in a bag or something. Aquarians just like to have they want to be separated. A lot of them like to be distinguished from other people, and I understand that. But sometimes we don't always have, sometimes we can adapt more to what the norm is, I believe, in certain situations and things, and it doesn't always have to be different just for the sake of being different. It's okay to be innovative and ingenious, but we don't always have to do something just for the sake of standing out in a crowd. And I think that's the thing I look at Aquarius, and being very eclectic and being just their sense of uniqueness. Sometimes there's too much of that urge to do this, I think, sometimes. Now, last but not least, talk about Pisces. Now, Pisces, very similar to Cancer, is can be very emotional and be very sensitive to things. I think with Pisces, I think the thing about them is that they're more impressionable, I believe, than any of the other signs. They really need to stay away more from the negative, the unscrupulous types more so, than any of the other signs because of this tendency to kind of go with the flow, maybe to their detriment, so to speak. It's very important for them to stay away, especially people that kind of are corrupt or crooked, and the ones that are into the drugs, the alcohol strongly. That is something that I'm not saying they need to abstain from alcohol completely. We can all drink as long as it's not excessive and it's not really to someone's detriment. But obviously recreational drugs are illegal, so that's obviously something we all want to stay away from. But with Pisces, they're more susceptible, I think, than the other signs to getting involved in these things, especially to the nature of being with the wrong people and perhaps being easily maybe manipulated or swayed by others. So I think when I look at Pisces, that's the thing with them that I see as the negativity, and also the changeable, that flightiness of Pisces. Sometimes I think Pisces may act a little differently when surrounded by a different set, a group of people, as opposed to maybe being in a certain group with others. Sometimes this is attributed to their adaptability, and I think in being somewhat malleable, but sometimes it's just because they just feel maybe they have to kind of be like similar to these other people, in fear that maybe they're not going to like them if they don't act that certain way around them. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the zodiac signs and what I think are the, I guess we could say, the worst traits or qualities or what have you, what I think they are. Stay tuned next time, where I will be continuing my series with the North Node and the aspects. And two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis on a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.